Chipotle Mexican Grill reports earnings after the bell today. And looking at this one-year chart, I mean, it kind of is similar to Visa that we were talking about earlier on in the show, in that it has really just shot up since the start of the year. And so, Andy, I'm wondering what your crew at LikeFolio Data is thinking about this burrito company. Can they keep going?
Well, I don't know. You know, our data on Chipotle is actually pretty flat in terms of consumers walking into the store. You know, the stock's been on a tear ever since they hired a CEO that actually knew how to melt cheese. But what's happening at Chipotle, the only thing that we can see that's positive for Chipotle at this point in the bright green line, at the last part of that bright green line, is where you start to see delivery of Chipotle coming into play. And their deal with DoorDash has been very, very positive for the company. You know, they've enabled delivery through their app. We see delivery kind of taking off for Chipotle, while on the other hand, people talking about actually going into the store is flatter down. And so, you know, I don't know if it'll be this quarter. I don't know if it'll be next quarter, but I do think that there is a reckoning coming for Chipotle shareholders. You know, this just looks like a stock that has gone far too far and way too fast.
One of the things we talk about, Andy, on this show a lot is no matter what the stock is, no matter how much I like it or dislike it, at some point I want to be long, at some point I want to be short. And Brian Nickel, as we all know, coming from Taco Bell, has changed this company around. But even I have to look at this and say, oh, come on. Now, I mean, the PE on this company, the run that it's been on, it'd be hard for me to jump on longs at this level.
Yeah, I think that the biggest impact that this CEO has had so far is on investor confidence. And so that PE ratio keeps climbing. Revenue, same-store sales, you know, they aren't dropping like they used to be, but there's nothing in this that's a massive growth story. And so I think investor confidence in Chipotle is high because of the CEO that they have, and some of this, you know, there is a silver lining in our data in terms of delivery from DoorDash and things like that looking good. But overall, there hasn't been a lot of there when it comes to actually increasing Chipotle's revenues and earnings. And so that's why you start to see that PE climbing up so much. It's more about investor confidence than anything, and that can be quite fickle. So I just caution people at these levels.
Well, and we know the big story about Chipotle and its health concerns that were, you know, in the past, but, you know, that's still weighed on these shares significantly, 2015, 2016, around then. And it was back around these levels back then, you know, selling off down into the 300s, even where it was just at the end of last year. How much has their new reward system benefited this company from what you can tell on social media, or has it really not impacted it much at all? As you mentioned, not a whole lot of growth in terms of mentions.
Well, I think that the reward system has been a positive along with delivery. And so they've actually done a really good job on the technology side. Their app is very popular and is getting repeat customers. It's where they're struggling is bringing people back in the door or getting new customers to come in, and that continues to struggle. So I think if you're thinking about Chipotle, if you think that food delivery is going to be the next big wave, then Chipotle is in a pretty good spot. But if you think, you know, that's a nice additional element to a company, then you know, Chipotle could be a little high right now, and struggling to get people to actually come in the door is not a good sign for getting people to repeat customer.
Yeah, Andy, if you want to play the conference call drinking game, if you have us drink every time you hear the word digital, you will not make it through the conference call, just so you know. So be careful playing that conference call drinking game.
Back to what Alex was talking about how they really, how the stock really sold off at that 2015 time. I have a tweet that speaks just to that. Our tweet says, "It's been one heck of a roller coaster ride, but Chipotle Mexican Grill, what a crazy comeback. Sets a record high in today's trade, went from $757 in October of 2015 down to $247 on February 2018, and hit $759 today. And this was from last Friday when they did make those new highs over there. But I think it's interesting because if you show this chart, it's about a 4-year weekly chart. it kind of looks like a burrito bowl. It has these whole different sides, and then it just dips right down, and it looks just like a burrito bowl. So I don't know what that says, but
You paint with words. That's what it says.
Well, the one thing to me that it's definitely sticks out here going into this announcement, Andy, we hit that new high and we basically sold off just straight down from it. Do you think maybe there's a little bit of people just taking off that risk that they were maybe holding it all the way from October of 2015, saying, hey, I'm back to even, I am out of this name?
Yeah, that's the classic reaction when you have a burrito bowl pattern, is when you get to the other side of the burrito bowl, you're out of food and you call it a day, you put down your fork.
So following up to that, our second tweet is from Leilani Pips, who says, Yum Brands, McDonald's, and Chipotle Mexican Grill. Evercore rated all three restaurant stocks as outperform in new coverage, based on an acceleration in fast food and a decline in casual dining. And this tweet is from June 12th, when Chipotle had previously made its previous new highs. And since then, it's been pretty flat. So I'm wondering, like what you're all saying about maybe Chipotle's getting too overvalued, what comes next?
Here's the stat that scares me about Chipotle. The 5-year average for 12-month earnings, right? The 5-year average, Chipotle trades 42 times forward 12-month earnings, right? That's the 5-year average. It's currently trading 50 times the 5-year average.
As a more mature company.
Right, exactly. So that's what gives me pause about this and makes me, want to exit if I was in it. Let's put it that way.
Well, and you look at this performance, I think that's what you've alluded to too, Andy. It's basically been straight up since the end of the year with limited to zero volatility even throughout some of these earnings announcements. And if you go back to the last earnings here, I don't remember what the actual numbers were, but the stock was well within the expected move, even to the downside. The stock's been very resilient in spite maybe not even meeting expectations.
Yeah, I think what Kevin's talking about, it's really important to note that expensive companies can stay expensive for a long time. And so that's why I'm not putting too much into just this single report. What we're seeing is a lack of acceleration in Chipotle's revenues, in people coming into the store and things like that. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to come to fruition on this report. So I think people need to be careful. Expensive stocks can stay expensive for a really long time. And I think resilient is really the right word. Alex, that's a good way to put it.
Well, Andy, kind of building on that here as we kind of wrap this up, no pun intended there on the burritos, but when I look at this, Andy, and I'm looking at just this earnings announcement, and I'm looking at our platform, we're expecting about a $43 expected move. Obviously, that's a massive move, but you're talking about a $730 stock. Your guys' data not really supporting necessarily the run-up that we've seen. If you had to look at this quarter and this earnings announcement, obviously you're talking about the long-term story. It can stay a little bit elevated, but would you guys be leaning bearish from what I'm gathering?
Yeah, I would lean bearish, and I think it's one of those kind of plays for me where it's, if we're right, I want to get paid on it in a big way. So I might be looking to go out of the money and a deeper expiration than normal to give myself a couple of earnings cycles for this to play out and hope that I'm right at some point down the road. So I would be out pretty far and then say, look, if I'm right, this bubble could pop, and if so, I want to get paid for that.
So much more of a longer-term outlook on Chipotle than a one-day trade in terms of this earnings announcement.
Yeah, I think that's the way you have to play it, because I think you nailed it with the word resilient, and to bet against that could be a little aggressive.